Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we're back with more Test and Hope writings and speeches of Dr. King. We're going to jump right back into where we were, so let's get into this. The economic highway to power has few entry lanes for Negroes. Nothing so vividly reveals the crushing impact of discrimination and the heritage of exclusion as the limited dimensions of Negro business in the most powerful economy in the world. America's industrial production is half of the world's total, and within it is the production of Negro business is so small that it can scarcely be measured on any definable scale. Yet, in relation to the Negro community, the value of Negro business should not be underestimated. In the internal life of the Negro society, it provides a degree of stability. Despite formidable obstacles, it has developed a core of men of competence and organizational discipline who constitute a talented leadership reserve. Their cumulative strength may be feeble measured against the mammoth of white industry, but within the community they furnish inspiration and are a resource for the development of programs and planning. They are a strength among the weak, and they are weak among the mighty. There exist two other areas, however, where Negroes exert substantial influence on the broader economy. As employees and consumers, Negro numbers and their strategic disposition endow them with a certain bargaining strength. Within the ranks of organized labor, there are nearly 2 million Negroes. Not only are they found in large numbers as workers, but they are concentrated in key industries. In the truck transportation, steel, auto, and food industries, which are the backbone of the nation's economic life, Negroes make up nearly 20% of the organized workforce, although they are 10% of the general population. This potential strength is magnified further by the fact of their unity with millions of white workers in these occupations. As co-workers, there is a basic community of interest that transcends many of the ugly divisive elements of traditional prejudice. There are undeniably points of friction, for example, in certain housing and education questions, but the severity of the abrasions is minimized by the more commanding need for cohesion in union organizations. The manifestations of race prejudice were so were to erupt within the organized plant, it would set into motion many corrective forces. It would not flourish as it does in a neighborhood with nothing to inhibit it but morbid observers looking for thrills. In the shop, the union officials from highest to lowest levels would be immediately involved, for internal discord is no academic matter. it weakens the union at its contests with the employers. Therefore, an important self-interest motivates harmonious race relations. Here, Negroes have a substantial weight to bring to bear on all measures of social concern. The labor movement, especially in its earlier days, was one of the few great institutions where a degree of hospitality and mobility was available to the Negroes. When the rest of the nation accepted rank discrimination and prejudice as ordinary and usual, like the rain, to be colored but accepted as part of nature, trade unions, especially the CIO, leveled all barriers to equal membership. In a number of instances, Negroes rose to influence national office. Today, the union record in relation to the Negro workers is exceedingly uneven, but the potentiality for influencing union decisions still exists. In many of the larger unions, the white leadership contains some men of ideas and many more who are pragmatists. Both groups find they are benefited by a constructive relationship to their Negro membership. For those compelling reasons, Negroes who are almost wholly a working people cannot be casual toward the union movement. This is true even though some of the unions remain incontestably hostile. In days to come, organized labor will increase its importance in the destinies of Negroes. Automation is imperceptibly but inexorably producing dislocations, skimming off the unskilled labor from the industrial force. The displaced are flowing into proliferating service occupations. These enterprises are traditionally unorganized and provide low wage scales with longer hours. The Negro pressed into the services need union protection, and the union movement needs their membership to maintain its relative strength in the whole society. On this new frontier, Negroes may well become the pioneers that they were in the early organizing days of the 30s. The trade union movement in the last 2 decades, despite its potential strength, has been an inarticulate giant with an unsteady gait, subjected to abuse and confused in its responses. Some circles of labor, after simmering discontent, are now allowing their challenge to vent itself. The Teamsters Union, ousted some years ago by the AFL-CIO, instead of tottering or perishing, launched an expansion program that has increased its membership to nearly 2 million. It is not well known that the Teamsters have well over 250,000 Negroes in their ranks, and some of the highest rates of pay enjoyed by Negro workers anywhere in an industry. In other mass unions, the new leaders have emerged with a deep commitment to broad social issues. Recently, Walter Reuther and other leaders of 1.5 million auto workers have announced a new policy directed toward a restoration of the crusading spirit that characterized the unions of the past. They have fashioned a program for organizing the poor, Negro and white, in the South and the North, this will be no simple crusade because the poor may have many problems to overcome even to get into motion. Yet they are so many millions in number that they promise that the promise is stirring and its implications are vast. The emergence of social initiatives by the revitalized labor movement would be taking place as Negroes are placing economic issues on the highest agenda. The coalition of an energized section of labor, Negroes unemployed, and welfare recipients may be the source of power that reshapes economic relationships and ushers in a breakthrough to the new level of social reform. The total elimination of poverty, now a practical responsibility, the reality of equality in race relations, and other profound structural changes in a society may well begin here. To play her role fully as Negroes, we will have to strive for enhanced representation and influence in the labor movement. Our young people need to think of union careers as earnestly as they do of business careers and professions. They could do worse than emulate A. Philip Randolph, who rose to the executive council of the AFL-CIO and become a symbol of the courage, compassion, and integrity of an enlightened labor leader. Indeed, the question may be asked, as we have produced only one Randolph in nearly half a century. Discrimination is not the whole answer. We allowed ourselves to accept middle-class prejudices toward the labor movement. Yet, this is one of those fields in which higher education is not a requirement for high office. In shunning it, we have lost an opportunity. Let us try to regain it now, at a time when the joint forces of Negro and labor may be facing an historic task of social reform. The other economic lever available to the Negro is as a consumer. As long ago as in 1932, the book Moral Man and Immoral Society, Reinhold Niebuhr pointed out that the boycotts against banks which discriminate against Negroes in quantity credit, against stores which refuse to employ Negroes while serving Negro trade, and against public service corporations which practice racial discrimination, would undoubtedly be crowned with some measure of success. These words have proved to be prophetic, for we have been seeing the success of this approach in the last few years. SCLC has pioneered in developing mass boycott movements in frontal attack on discrimination. Our dramatic demonstrations tended to obscure the role of boycotts in cities such as Alabama. It was not the marching alone that brought about integration of public facilities in 1963. The downtown business establishments suffered for weeks under the almost unbelievably effective boycott. The significant percentage of their sales that vanished, the 98% of their Negro customers who stayed home, educated them forcefully to the dignity of the Negro as a customer. Later, we crystallized our experiences in Birmingham and elsewhere and developed a department in SCLC called Operation Breadbasket. This has as its primary aim the securing of more and better jobs for the Negro people. It calls on the Negro community to support those businesses that will give a fair share of jobs to Negroes and to withdraw its support from the businesses that have discriminatory policies. The key word in Operation Breadbasket is respect. It says, in substance, if you respect my dollars, you must respect my person. If you respect my quantitative support, then you must respect the quality of my job and my basic material needs. Operation Breadbasket is carried out mainly by the clergyman. First, a team of ministers calls in the management of a business in the community to request basic facts on the company's total number of employees, the number of Negro employees, the department or job clarifications in which all employees are located, and the salary ranges for each category. The team then returns to the steering committee to evaluate the data and to make a recommendation concerning the number of new and upgraded jobs that should be requested. The decision on the number of jobs requested is usually based on population figures. For instance, if a city has 30% Negro population, then it is logical to assume that Negroes should have at least 30% of jobs in any particular company. The jobs in all categories rather than only in the menial ones, as in the case always happens to be. The next step is negotiation. The team of clergymen returns to the management of the company and transmits the request to hire or upgrade a specified number of qualifiable Negroes within a reasonable period of time. The negotiating sessions are also educational in that the clergymen seek to arouse within management an awareness of the devastating problem of the ghetto and point out the immorality of the companies that make profits from Negro consumers while at the same time excluding them from jobs. If negotiations break down, the step of real power and pressure is taken. The fourth step consists of the massive call for economic withdrawal from the company's product and accompanying demonstration if necessary. The ministers go to their pulpits and to other communications, meaning media, and ask Negroes to stop buying the employer's product and patronizing his business. Clergy-led teams dramatize the dispute to the ghetto inhabitants by picketing the stores where the products in question are sold. The fall off in trade and the concomitant silencing of the cash register is a result of as a result of this boycott is a powerful force in causing the company ultimately to meet the demands. In most cases, it is not necessary to go to step 4 because most business executives are keenly aware of the Negro's buying power and the consequent effect of its withdrawal. At present, SCLC has Operation Breadbasket functioning in some 12 cities, and the results have been remarkable. In Atlanta, Georgia, for instance, the Negro's earning power has been increased by more than 20 million annually over the past 3 years. through a carefully disciplined program of selective buying and negotiation by the Negro ministers. During the last 8 months in Chicago, Operation Breadbasket successfully completed negotiations with three major industries: milk, soft drinks, and chain grocery stores. Four of the companies involved concluded reasonable agreements only after short don't buy campaigns. Seven other companies were able to make the requested changes across the conference table without necessitating a boycott. Two other companies, after providing their employment information to the ministers, were sent letters of communication for their healthy equal employment practices. The net results add up to approximately 800 new and upgraded jobs for Negro employees worth a little over $7 million in new annual income for Negro families. In Chicago, we have recently added a new dimension to Operation Breadbasket. Among the requesting new job opportunities, we are now requesting that businesses with stores in the ghetto deposit the income of those establishments in Negro-owned banks, and that Negro-owned products be placed on the counters of all their stores. In this way, we seek to stop the drain of resources out of the ghetto with nothing remaining there for its rehabilitation. The two chain grocery stores with which we have so far negotiated, Hi-Lo and National Tea, have readily agreed. They have now opened accounts in the two Negro banks of Chicago, and their shelves display every Negro-owned product of the city. This has given new vibrancy and growth to Negro businesses in Chicago and will contribute to the continued economic growth of the city. So yeah, Dr. King talking about how they often deal with the inequality among businesses to get more Negro representation within the businesses and to help grow other Negro businesses in a community. I mean, you would think that would be only common sense, that if a community was 30% black, then companies should roughly have 30% employees that are black. But unfortunately, it wasn't necessarily that way. And Dr. King talks about the use of economic force to be laid upon these companies. But yeah, that'll go ahead and end this episode. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tries to tell you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, later.